Hello, Marco from CGKey here, and today I want to share with you some tips that I found trying to improve my skin rendering. There was an issue that I always found when dealing with the skin material, specifically when I was working with it in Substance Painter and bringing those textures back to Blender. And it was that the skin always looked a bit dry. It always looked like it lacked that skinniness. I don't know how to say it. But I wanted to figure out what was making that happen. Why was the skin not interacting properly with the light? If it was something about the subsurface scattering, if it was something about the roughness map. And there were a lot of issues with all of those. In fact, if you see the node tree for the skin material that I have right now, is quite a mess. But that's the nature of shading. But anyways, what was the main issue that I found while looking at reference? And this is a little tip besides the main tip I'm going to share with you. Always look at references, not just references to emulate in the sense of how does something look and try to be as close to that as possible, but also references with regards to how someone solved a problem or how someone else shaders worked. And the reference I found was here on a website called 3dscanstore.com. I always come here to look for skin references, to look at how the face is shaded in these models, because these are 3D scans that are brought to ZBrush and then rendered. And here you can check all the angles, close-ups to look at how the skin works in CG. But my main reference is down here. It is this, the texture maps. And a texture map that that caught my attention, sorry, was this one, head transmission. I saw that I had all the others, roughness or reflections, the diffuse map, the detail mask, the roughness, all of this I had. But this map, head transmission, caught my attention because transmission is usually something that you add to transparent or semi-transparent materials so that light can pass through them. And I said, let me try that out. Let me see what happens if I add some transmission to my shader. And I made two renders. And both were ray traced, both were with cycles, not Eevee. Here is an Eevee preview without transmission, but I want to share with you the two renders that I made with and without transmission on cycles. And the reason I'm going to share the cycles renders first, I'm going to show you later. Now, look at it without transmission. It looks like skin, all right, but it looks dry on certain parts. And the subsurface scattering is not working as intended, not entirely. And the light is harsh here. The shadows are harsher. The skin in general feels a bit dry, a bit rough in general. And now look how it changes when you add transmission to it. Look at how the shading changed. The shadows are less harsh, especially here. The subsurface scattering is working much better. It still needs improvement, but it now goes through the skin, and something like the eyes look a lot more fleshy. And that was the point. I wanted it to look like flesh, not clay, not something hard, but something softer. Also, the rest of the skin changed for the better too, because I made it look a bit more transparent, just a little bit, in order for the light to go through the skin and make it look like flesh, because flesh is solid, yes, but it is also capable of diffusing, dispersing light through itself. Now, how do you apply transmission to your render? Well, you can always hand paint a transmission map on the areas that you want it to be more transparent, more capable of scattering light. But a quick way to do it and a quick way to test it in order to know if it's the right fit for your skin material is to just use your subsurface scattering map, like I did here. Now I'm gonna minimize this guy over here and I'm gonna go through the node setup. Here's my material. And now, as you can see, I have a lot of stuff here. Just let me move this a bit out of the way so you can see where everything's going. First of all, I have my SSS material here, my subsurface scattering, connected to its UV map. Now, this subsurface scattering material looks like this. It targets the areas that usually scatter light the most in the male face. Now, to create the transmission material or the transmission map, I added a color ramp here. And what does this do? It softens the darkness, the dark parts of the image, in order for everything to have a bit of transmission. Remember, zero or no transmission at all is perfectly black. Absolute transmission is perfectly white. You want something that's in the middle, something that adds transparency, but not enough to make it, for example, glass or transparent plastic. You want something that looks like flesh. And the color ramp is on ease with the gray values around the center for the darker ones, closer to the center, and almost at the center, but from the other side for the lighter areas. This evens it out and makes a better transmission. And it goes from this to, and here's the important part. That's why I showed you the cycles renders first, because this works out of the box on cycles, but on Eevee you have to change some settings. From this, it goes to this. Look how the subsurface scattering started to work better here in the ear, but something happened. This started to get shiny, and it's not an artifact. It's something about the material that makes it shiny like that, and it is the fact that it's treating it somewhat like glass or plastic. The light is going through the mesh in a weird way. Now, there is a way to fix this. You have to make sure you're in Eevee here in the render engine, and then go to material, select the object you want to work on, and once you have it selected, make sure to turn on outline in order to know that you have it selected. Now, let's close the surface tab here and go to the settings tab. And when you open it, you're going to see in the surface sub-tab a bunch of options. And you're going to see these ones. Let me open it a bit more. Transparent shadows, ray trace transmission, this is on the third, and from shadow unchecked. And that's the reason you have these strange lights here on the skin. You're gonna check the from shadows tab here, and it goes away entirely. And you will have the exact same render on Eevee with ray tracing on as you had in cycles. But of course, as it is the nature of Eevee, in a fraction of the time, because it is a real-time render engine, and you can see in real time the changes you make. And the texture looks a lot more natural, more flesh-like. So try adding transmission to your skin material and see how it improves the quality of your skin.